everyone, and welcome to the Raptor Queens podcast, the first ever all-woman podcast covering the Toronto Raptors. My name is Sarah KLOW. I'm here with my other Queen of the North, Allison Hope. Welcome to all of our listeners. This week, we are going to cover the last four Raptors games, beginning in Orlando with a win and a record-setting performance by Fred VanVleet, followed by a very interesting game against the Brooklyn Nets, a game against the Hawks, and then finally a exciting game against the Grizzlies where the Raptors came from behind in the fourth quarter after Nick Nurse was ejected to win the game in stunning fashion. So an excellent week of Raptors games to review. We're also going to spend some time looking at one of the Raptors' newer players, Deandre Bembry, so stay tuned to hear more about his, I guess just the way he plays and learn more about whether his statistics match the eye test and also get an introduction. Who is he? Where does he come from? Learn more about him. So stay tuned for that. We have some trade rumors circulating around the Raptors and also confirmation of Bobby Webster re-signing with the Raptors. Of course, our weekly segment, King of the North and Court Jester of the Week, followed by Tea Time. There is so much tea to spill, including a lot of good news related to Raptors players and the NBA G League. Then we're going to go around the league. Is Philly for real? What's going on with them? How come they're in first place? We'll take a deeper look at Philadelphia and then finally wrap up with our predictions for this week's Raptors games. Okay, so Allison, let's start with the second Orlando game. This is the the second game of a back-to-back against Orlando. The Raptors won 123-108, and the story of the night, of course, is that Fred VanVleet set a Raptors record, scored 54 points in that game. What a game by Fred.
That was so exciting to watch. And I remember, I want to say it was like 2011, watching Danny Green set a record for most number of threes in a quarter. And as Fred was like knocking them down, you really started to get a sense of like, wow, this is like something special. And I must say, given the fact that I'm not a huge Vince Carter fan, I was very happy to see him eclipse Vince Carter's record. I know I've been a little bit critical of Fred in the past, but I was so happy for him. I mean, this is the culmination of all that hard work. And it was great to see. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
I agree. And not only did he set a Raptors record, but he also set a record for the most points in a single game by an undrafted player. So Fred's story just keeps getting better and better. Just this is a bit of a side question, not specific to the game, but what do you think it is about Fred that lets him perform at this level when he's not actually the most talented person on the basketball court? What do you think it is about him?
It sounds like he had a really good structured upbringing. I know his dad was murdered, but it sounds like his stepdad was a very powerful presence in his life and was very much a role model. So I think probably like growing up where he did in the circumstances he did, that probably contributes a lot. He's a very self-confident guy. Um, so yeah, that's my what do you think, Sarah?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I mean, your point about confidence he is, but he blends confidence and humility so well. He's clearly a hard worker who takes nothing for granted. And I guess his teammates always point to him being such a competitive, hard worker. But there are a lot of really competitive hard workers in the NBA who don't set these records. And so I guess I just wonder what quality exactly Fred is bringing to the game that, you know, allows for these kind of results and outcomes for him. So happy for him. I'm so happy he's a Raptor. What a great signing this offseason. And yeah,
It sure was, and I had read an article today by Blake Murphy, and he talked about Malachi Flynn going to the I shouldn't say going down, going to the G League for the bubble tournament, and he commented that his last team dinner was with Malachi Flynn's last team dinner was with Fred and Pascal, and Chris Boucher. So those are 3 players who've done really well and developed solidly as a result of being in the G League. So, what a good note to go on. Like, nice to see.
Yeah, that was just great. Um, Norm Powell had a good game as well. He scored 23 points that game, and he also had a good game against the Nets. Let's move on to the Nets, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about Norman Powell as well. So the Raptors beat the Nets 123 to 117 in what started out as an extremely fast-paced, exciting game. The Raptors came out all cylinders firing offensively. In my personal opinion, in the third quarter, the referees were absolute garbage and kind of killed the vibe of the game. It did pick up again as we entered the fourth quarter, which was great. And in that game, we had Pascal Siakam score 33 points, Norm Powell scored 18, Kyle Lowry had 30, Chris Boucher off the bench with 17 points, 9 rebounds. Yeah, I mean, what were your thoughts about this game?
Well, this was like a slugfest right from the beginning. Like, it was gritty. Both teams were in the weeds, and you could tell that the Raptors were really amped up for this game. And this was finally a game where we did perform in the clutch, and it was kind of reminiscent of the tension in Game 6 of the finals in 2019. Pascal just had a monster game, and he attacked the paint relentlessly. I think, if memory serves me correctly, he only attempted 2 threes. He had a full stat line. And I mean, obviously, Nick Nurse's game plan was to attack in the paint because the Nets really don't have much rim protection or, a post defender.
Interior defense that, just,
Yeah.
yeah. They
In
had
other
no answer
words,
for Pascal Siakam.
I'm
Not,
sorry?
they had no answer for
No,
Pascal Siakam.
no. Fred kind of struggled to score in this game, but he certainly contributed in every other way, and he's just continuing to log huge minutes. And this was like just a typical Kyle Lowry game. Just came up big from 3. I think he was 6 for 9. Um, Boucher, I think he had a spectacular block of a 3-point shot at the point of release. And we really took good care of the ball with 10 turnovers. I think that's a season low. James Harden held to 17 points and Kyrie Irving to 15. So it kind of came right down to the wire. This was a good win.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we can't step over the fact that Kevin Durant didn't play the whole game due to various, I don't even know what to call it. We'll just call it a COVID NBA fiasco in terms of the health and safety protocols. I don't want to spend too much time on it, only because I think that um, the game itself doesn't necessarily merit an extended discussion about what happened with KD. But instead of the big 3 for the entire game, the Raptors played against 2, Kyrie and Harden, but they played very well against them, very well.
They did. And I mean, that certainly was a fiasco. Um, but again, you can really see the impact of Brooklyn not having a functional center. I mean, this is going to come to bite them, I'm sure, in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think Brooklyn, not having a functional center, and uh, to me, it seems not really having a will or like a realistic assessment of what it takes to play defense. Because I heard James Harden say like, "Oh, we'll figure defense out by the playoffs," as if that was as if it's as simple as that. I think, just from having watching the to be honest, it's because I watch the Raptors that I think this way. I think defense is an identity more than something you figure out.
Exactly. It's a culture. I feel like I'm drinking the same Kool-Aid. And actually, Brooklyn lost again tonight. They were beaten by Detroit, one of the worst teams in the league. So it wasn't a super high scoring game. It looks like some defense was played, but that's pretty shocking. And then I saw that Steve Nash was trending after the game, which is never usually a good thing. And one of the top comments was that he's going to be they're going to start getting the knives out for him. So yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. You were right. It's going to be, what was the word you used? A fiasco. Yes, the spectacle, exactly.
Yeah. Well, okay, so a couple things I also want to add on to about this game. You're right. Fred did not have a great shooting game. He only scored 11 points, and he only got one 3-pointer to keep his streak alive for the number of games in a row that he's had a 3-pointer. I can't remember what it's at now, but it's a lot. And it wasn't until like the fourth quarter.
That was huge, that three.
Yeah, an offensive rebound by Norm, who threw it to Kyle, who kicked it over to Fred, and Fred hits the three in the dying minutes of the fourth quarter. He's been stone cold all night, but then in pure Freddie Ice fashion, just drills this 3-pointer. And he had the biggest smile on his face as he was running back on defense. It was actually quite a pleasure to watch.
That, and he just looked, like a born shooter, right? Like he's done that, gone through those motions like hundreds of thousands of times. Like it's just in his DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a timely three for sure.
Yeah. And okay, Kyle Lowry also clutch playing throughout the game. I couldn't help but feel like this was Kyle Lowry's reminder to everyone on national television. Hi, I'm an all-star, and don't you ever forget it.
That's right. I forgot that it was on national TV, and we've had quite a few games where the Raptors haven't played well on the big, the big stage. So this was good to see them, against, a fairly tough opponent. And yeah, I was happy about that.
Mm-hmm. And we touched on it briefly, but um, I was of the opinion that this is one of Pascal Siakam's best games this year. I think part of it was that the matchups favored him, but I loved to see him in the paint down low, being aggressive, and not actually just like not taking 3-pointers. What did you think of his game this against Brooklyn?
Yeah, you're right. I think because again, they don't have a functional center, and they were very reluctant to double him. I noticed. And it was very nice to see him not relying on the three. Like I think you can almost tell when his game is off because he's overly reliant on outside shooting. So just, in the mindset, aggressive right from the beginning. I mean, this is what we need to see. And by all means, he's a good three-point shooter, but we need, a sprinkling of that, not a steady diet of that.
Yeah. Also in this game, OG was out. He's been out all week actually for all of the games that we're talking about with a strained calf. Um, so we're of course missing OG's defensive presence. I have to say, Norm's defense against Brooklyn was some of the best I've ever seen him play. Uh, Go ahead.
I've been critical of his defense in the past. He he isn't a net deficit on defense now. That's about as far as I'm willing to go. He's still sometimes slow to rotate, but he hasn't had any like obvious gaffes that I can think of. So yeah, I'll definitely give him a passing grade on that. But he more than brings it on the offensive end. So that's a trade off I'm happy with.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's move forward then into the next game the Raptors plays against the Hawks. This was a second game in a row following the Nets game. All right, so Fred Van Vliet, or sorry, leading scorer was Chris Boucher with 29 points. Fred Van Vliet had 25, Norm Powell had 20, and Pascal Siakam had 15. Allison, what were your thoughts on this game?
So they actually started out like the first defensive sequence, and they were just stifling on that possession. Um, I did notice Jack Armstrong when they commented that Atlanta was allowing 20% of fans in. And Jack came back with the quip that it wasn't much different from their attendance pre pandemic, which I thought was kind of funny. The Raptors, they did a lot of doubling, like high, like above the break, and with on Trey Young. And obviously, Atlanta anticipated this because they were able to make really good passes out of those doubles. They weren't flustered by the pressure at all. And we saw John Collins, like that guy. Um, if I memory serves me correctly, Atlanta didn't extend him. I think he was eligible for a rookie extension. He's a very good player. Um, it was nice to see Norm just attacking the rim. And that's someone too that's in attack mode, like right from the beginning. And he just adds such a nice element to the Raptors offense. I mean, teams have to cover him. And I did note that Bembry hit a three, and that's nice to see in the flow of the offense. And we finally had a shot that went into the buzzer. Fred had that high, crazy arcing shot at the end of the first quarter. And just kind of looking at the rest of the game, things got a little bit more frustrating from there. We went through another scoring drought. They pointed out that the Hawks were one of the teams that got to the free throw line the most. And I did notice too that Atlanta's defensive intensity went way up when Rajon Rondo subbed in for Trey Young. So they came out really flat in the third quarter. Like Aaron Baines was basically anchored to the ground, and he was unable to provide like any meaningful defense against Clint Capella. Capella just had his way with him. And I mean, Capella's a good player. Less than a minute into the third quarter, Atlanta had already scored 5 points. And, it was here that I'm thinking we're really missing OG right now. The Raptors looked really, really tired, but then they started to flash some fight, and Bembry was making plays, and Boucher had a really nice dunk. And just at the end of the third quarter, there was just a BS call on Terrence Davis. He touched Trey Young, and Trey Young ended up getting free throws out of it. So some questionable calls by the refs both ways in the fourth quarter. Stanley was working his butt off. And I mean, we were down 6 with 4 minutes left, and the Raptors were fighting. I think, forced 7 Atlanta turnovers in the fourth. But just we couldn't make 3 or 4 successful trips in a row, and kind of the game slipped away. So I think fatigue was probably a big element of this game, and I think it was probably a little bit of a letdown from um, a team with a cachet of the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, Atlanta's a good team, but they don't have a lot of cachet. So this was kind of disappointing, but kind of understandable. What what
Well,
did
I
what did
remember
you
thinking
see?
that right after the Nets game and realizing they had a game the day after, I thought to myself that it'll be hard to win the second game. The hype that you had to bring internally to play against the Brooklyn Nets and to have quite an excellent game against them, especially offensively. Uh, I don't know. I can see the letdown factor that you're talking about. The Raptors did look tired. I was hoping that we would see some more production from Stanley Johnson defensively. He didn't get a lot of minutes against Brooklyn, and so when he subbed in against Atlanta, I was hoping that would mean fresh legs and we'd see something happen there. Um, it didn't seem to make much of a difference. I will say Chris Boucher was an absolute fighter in that game. Just brought I mean, I feel like I say this every single podcast. He brings energy to every shift, but it was really apparent that he was fighting in the Atlanta Hawks game, and it was quite fun to watch. I just think Trey Young is such a hard player to defend.
I
And
think he's got the best handles in the league.
yeah,
I do.
and even Fred, an all defensive player, just like he just blows right by him, just blows right by him. And so, I mean, maybe it would have made a difference if OG was there. Maybe it would have made a difference if Aaron Baines wasn't a pylon. Then there might be some kind of, rotational chance against an offense led by Trey Young. But that was just, especially the second night of a back to back with everyone's legs tired. He was just unstoppable.
Yeah, he's very electric to watch. He's like, this is the future of the NBA, these young guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last game that we're going to cover, the Raptors had a big win against the Grizzlies, and I'm calling it a big win because it was the first time this season that the Raptors were trailing after 3 and came back to actually win the game, and win it they did. 128 to 113. Nick Nurse was ejected with 3 minutes left in the third quarter on a second technical foul. He didn't even know he had a first, but he was ejected from the game, and the Raptors held the Grizzlies to only 16 points in the fourth quarter and they just snatched that game right out of the Grizzlies' claws. It was fun.
Yeah, yeah, Memphis never should have lost that game, and it's been said that when a coach gets himself kicked out, like, that kinda lights a fire under the players. Who knows if that's what happened, but and to our listeners, I, will confess once again that Sarah and I were chatting on our DMs through the game, and I did tell her that it looked like we were gonna lose, and I was getting all negative, and then I said, "There's a glimmer of hope here." So, yeah, I was super happy about that. We, they came out with really active hands with deflections. Norm came out, like, just attacking, but, there's Aaron Baines, like, turning down open shots, like, he's really an impediment to the offense, and, he was open at least twice for a 3 and turned down the shot, and it just kind of, gums up the offense. The play-by-play guys mentioned that Memphis was 30th in the league in free throw attempts, and at the end of the first quarter, they already had 12. And TD, like I've said this before, is kind of playing himself out of minutes because he comes in with 2 quick fouls that kind of turn the momentum a bit. Bembry flashed some really nice shot creation. He had a beautiful no-look pass, and Chris Boucher, some very nice defense. I can't remember who it was on. He stayed down on a pump fake and uh, and made the play. I think that was the last possession of the first quarter. And then Watanabe was just working his butt off, getting offensive rebounds. And when he couldn't grab the rebound, he was tipping it out. Pascal finally hit a 3, and
A bunch of,
I'm sorry.
a whole bunch of them.
Yes, he did, but, like, just kinda going chronologically.
Right.
And then there was this really weird sequence, toward the end of the second quarter where Baines made the initial stop on just, like, under the rim, and then he didn't close out. So, the Memphis Grizzly player, I can't remember who it was, is standing there with an open path, a and just throws up a little 3-foot shot, and Baines, no attempt. Like, I just wonder about his IQ, or maybe it's the effect of COVID, I don't know, but it was just such a mental lapse. Um, and then starting the third, DeAndre Bembry had a very impressive steal, literally right out of the hands of JV. You don't often see a steal like that. And I just remember thinking at that point, okay, Kyle was out with his back spasms, and I'm thinking, this is Fred's team to run. And so, he kind of did some playmaking. Um, Jonas Valanciunas was, up until the fourth quarter, absolutely having his way with us. And, it really makes you realize having a center who can rebound and, actually get the putbacks, like his numbers were huge. Um, and then going into the fourth, that's when I kind of started to get a little bit more positive. Like, we went on a big run. I think it was 23-5. Norm with a hot hand, and I kind of wanted to see Fred just keep, feeding him the ball. I think Norm was 5 for 8 from 3. Um, we didn't have a lot of turnovers. There was just some very nice playmaking and some very tenacious defense. Pascal had a lovely bank shot, and it was just good to see us win in the crunch time. Like, this was a big game. Memphis failed, to assert themselves, and you're right, we snatched the game from them.
Yeah. Okay. So you're right that JV had huge numbers. He had 20 rebounds and 27 points. And in contrast, Aaron Baines had 6 rebounds and 7 points, only played 19 minutes. Chris Boucher comes in, he had 10 rebounds and 12 points. So yeah, he's much smaller and he's getting pushed around down there. But once again, we're seeing that fight. Um, Pascal Siakam, 32 points, Fred VanVleet, 32. and Norm Powell 29. So those are big offensive numbers from three offensive guys. That was great to see. One of the things I actually wanted to highlight, and I'm glad that I remembered to say this, is I actually felt like the Brooklyn game unlocked the Raptors as an offensive team. In that I kind of got the sense from Nick Nurse that for once the game plan to beat the other team was go play offense, go play more offense than they do, versus and like of course play defense because you have to, and they did really well on their star players, but you're not going to beat Brooklyn just playing defense. You have to play offense, and you can't get into the offensive droughts that we've seen the Raptors have. So they had a really like high octane offensive game starting in Brooklyn, and it seemed to carry through into the Hawks game even though they lost. So the Raptors had 123 points against the Nets, 121 against the Hawks, and then 128 against the Grizzlies yesterday, and I'm enjoying seeing this offensive side of the team. It's really nice.
I think Norm with the starters is kind of like a pressure valve for the attention that's normally given to Pascal. Because when the two of them are out there, like Norm, and I think, you made the point before, Sarah, like he's made a compelling argument for him to start. And it just makes you wonder if, Nick Nurse is going to have to, rejig the starting lineup. Maybe Kyle come off the bench. I don't know, because Norm, if he's putting up 25 or 30 a night, that kind of changes what our offense looks like. I think of the first few games of the year where we were struggling to score 90, 95 points. I mean, this is a whole different look when you've, to your point, three starters, each with say 30 points. That's a big chunk of the offense.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
So, I mean, there's going to have to be just some decisions made. It sounds like OG is going to be back, or is probable. I forget the expression they used for the next game against Washington. So, yeah, I wonder what we're going to see.
Yeah, me too. I am a big fan of not starting Baines anytime. So maybe they'll take Baines's role and OG will play the five.
Oh, I feel so bad about that. He's not this bad of a player. I- But well, I think we've talked about this before, and
It's
we'll
okay.
just leave it at that.
I think I'm extra harsh, and I know I am. And anyway, that's okay. All right, so that was good. We have now reviewed. Anything else you want to say about any of these games?
I was so happy that they beat Brooklyn. I was just so damn happy, and so happy to see them lose again tonight. But yeah, petty and vindictive, that's me.
That's okay. All right, then let's move into our next conversation, which is Deandre Bembry. So he's been getting a lot more playing time over the last few weeks, coming on and contributing some really nice minutes. Defensively, he is stealing the ball or deflecting the ball on a consistent basis. And offensively, he seems to have some very good chemistry, especially with Kyle Lowry, connecting on some beautiful fast break passes or even half court passes for easy buckets in the paint. So, Allison, let's introduce Deandre Bembry to our listeners.
I have quite enjoyed watching him, and so I kind of started doing a little bit of looking into his background. So he's either 6'6" or 6'5", depending on what reference you look at. 210 pounds. He played college ball at St. Joseph's University, which is a Division I school. It's in the Atlantic Conference. He was born in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's a right-hand shooter. He was the Atlantic 10 Conference Player of the Year. He made several all defensive teams, and he was drafted 21st overall by Atlanta. And he's, versatile. He's listed as either a shooting guard or a small forward. So, quite sadly, 2 weeks before the NBA draft, his younger brother was shot and killed trying to break up a fight. So he wears jersey 95 in honor of his brother, who was born in 95. So I remember him from Atlanta, but I don't remember much about him. So he played about 20 minutes a game in Atlanta. In 2019, 2020, he averaged 2.4 field goal attempts per game, a 45% field goal percentage. He attempted about 1 3 per game, and he was shooting 23%, 3 rebounds a game, 1 steal, and 2 assists. So kind of my subscription to the Athletic has been paying big dividends. So I read a couple articles by Chris Kirschner from the Atlantic, and he kind of commented that one of the reasons that they let him go was that they felt in the organization felt that his game did not progress. They kind of hoped that he'd grow as a 3 point shooter, and I guess they were left without a lot of optimism that he would be able to do that. And they also felt that his defense wasn't good enough. And that's kind of funny to me because that's certainly one of his strengths that I see. He was kind of unlucky with injuries in Atlanta. He only had one fully healthy year, and that was 2018. Um, there was a couple comments too that he liked to gamble a lot on defense and kind of got burned and got left, out of position. And they also commented that he likes playing fast and chasing ball handlers around the perimeter, and he liked to attack the rim. And they did comment too that he's turnover prone and tries to do more than he's capable of. And I don't really see that. I'm not sure what you see, but he seems to be playing very much within like the flow of the game. Like he's hit a few threes, and it's not like he's hunting them out, but when he's open, he's able to knock them down. And another good thing that sort of fits in with our culture, the coach for Atlanta said that he spent more time in their practice facility than any other player on the roster. So I looked him up on Basketball Reference, and they have this cool feature on Basketball Reference. You can do a head-to-head comparison with another player. So I kind of looked at Garrett Temple, who played for Brooklyn last year. Um, so similar numbers to Deandre Bembry, and he's at 4.7 million, and Bembry's at 1.7 million. So this looks like a pretty good bargain by the Raptors. He seems to have a good attitude. Like what I've seen of him, I really like. And, I said TD's playing himself out of minutes. I think that DeAndre Bembry is playing himself into more minutes. And I kind of wonder, I mean, what would he look like if if Nick Nurse decided to, separate Kyle and Fred and bring Kyle off the bench and to pair him up with Bembry? Like that would that would be kind of interesting to see.
Hmm.
There's a lot of options there. Like he's got nice length, he's fast, and I really like he and Utah out there at the same time. Like we have all kinds of possible permutations here. So what do you see about him that you like, Sarah?
Hmm. Oh, that's interesting. The idea of regular lineup with Kyle and Bembry. Um, okay, well, to your point about the Atlanta Hawks feeling like he was doing too much and that you're not seeing that happen on the Raptors. Um, do you remember if it was Leo or Jack that called the game against Atlanta?
I do not.
Okay. So as you mentioned, Atlanta's his former team, and they were not a good team last year. Just as a reminder, they were 20-47, and this year they're more 50%. So they're 11-12. And so whoever was calling the game mentioned, it's easy to try to do so much when it feels like you can't win,
Good point.
right? And so, feeling like you need to take it all into your hands. I really get the impression he that he really trusts the Raptors system. And so when you say that he plays inside of the defensive and the defense and the offensive system that the Raptors have, yeah, that's how it seems to me too. Nothing seems forced. Um, so yeah, I guess I'll be curious to see how he develops. I think he has certainly earned the minutes that he's getting. We didn't see almost anything from him in the early games, and more we're seeing seeing good minutes from him. So I'm happy to watch him to continue to grow and see what happens.
I think he makes Pat McCaw a little bit redundant because we have a player with kind of some of the same, physical attributes, but he's also willing to put up the shot. Whereas Pat McCaw is notoriously reticent to shoot. So, we kind of have a surplus of players of that type. So, kind of makes me wonder if any other teams in the market for, a 3 or 4 time. How many rings does McCaw have? Three?
Yeah.
A 3 time, championship winning player. Maybe Masai could spin something there. I don't know.
I completely forgot until you mentioned it that Pat McCaw is on the roster. Do we have a timeline for his return?
Apparently it's soon. I think he's doing light practices, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, he's on the horizon.
I have to admit I haven't particularly missed him. And I'm not at the moment super excited about having him back.
But I think, yeah, he brings a lot of the same things that Bembry does, only he won't shoot. So,
Right. Well, I guess we'll see. I mean, Stanley Johnson surprised everyone this year by being somebody that, you know, we're happy to have on the court to play some good defensive minutes. So, surprise. Maybe Pat McCall will do the same thing.
yeah, I was surprised that Stanley didn't get more minutes in the Memphis game. I mean, he's really brought it on the defensive end, but I mean, sometimes Nick Nurse's rotations, I'm kind of left, but I mean, he's the guy that's making $2 million a year, not me. So,
Yeah, that's true. Okay, well, let's move on then to our next little bit here. We don't spend a lot of time here. Bobby Webster re-signed with the Raptors. That is good news. No word yet on Masai, and I do think it's funny that we can't celebrate Bobby resigning without immediately saying, but Masai didn't. So there's definitely still some questions about the top position for the Raptors. And there have been some rumors that the Raptors are interested in trading for Andre Drummond, and some other rumors that Kyle Lowry is going to be traded and that his house is for sale in Toronto.
man, I don't know. Andre Drummond, one of my colleagues is a big Pistons fan, and he's like, Drummond, you don't want him. Like, he couldn't wait for Detroit to get rid of Drummond. He's kind of my friend Mike saw him as pretty much a stat patter and didn't really add substantively to the team. Just he can't shoot. He's kind of an anachronism. He's a big body at center, but Nikola Jokic, he ain't.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a we're not gonna get that.
But is he an upgrade over Aaron Baines? I guess that's the question. My friend didn't seem to think so.
Well, don't ask me.
I think I know what the answer to that is.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll see what happens. What do you make of the rumors that Kyle's house is for sale in Toronto? Do you think it has anything at all to do with the game or an
Well,
independent decision?
I wish I could say that I thought of this, but I didn't. I was a guest on another podcast today, Confederacy of Dunks, with Freddie Rivas and Matt Duncan. And Matt's conjecture on the matter was that Kyle got priced out of the Toronto housing market. So he's moving to Barrie. So I thought that was quite funny. I wish I'd thought of it. I don't know. Like, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, think of 2 years ago, we were, assigning some kind of significance to Kawhi Leonard having a Shoppers Drug Mart bag somewhere, with his stuff on a tropical island. That meant he was staying in Toronto. So, yeah, what does it mean? Who knows?
Yeah, I agree. We'll just have to wait and see. Yeah. Okay. So let's move then to next segment, King of the North. Who this week was the player that you want to acknowledge for kicking butt and being the King of the North?
Well, I went with Norm just because I thought Fred would be the obvious one, and that was kind of I think, was that more than 7 days ago? Regardless, I'm not going to parse it out that far. Norm had a great week, 18 points against Brooklyn, 20 against Atlanta, 29 against Memphis. Just bringing it on offense and just adding another dimension. Like he has to be taken seriously by other teams, and they have to guard him. So yeah, this is a really positive development. And like you said, he's making a case for being a starter. Who'd you pick, Sarah?
Well, I went with the obvious choice and I picked Fred VanVleet. I did feel like I had other options this week, which was very nice, but I have to acknowledge his 54-point game. And I want to, notwithstanding the quiet game he had against the Nets, I also want to acknowledge the ownership that he took of the team in the Grizzlies game, with Kyle in the locker room, Nick in the locker room, and he just took control of the team. And you know what? He made some absolutely beautiful passes in the fourth quarter. Really set his teammates up for some exciting plays that left me like clapping by myself in my living room for way too long. So I'm going to give it to Fred.
Yeah, his playmaking has improved, and I've been critical of that in the past. And he had a double double in one of those games. I can't remember which one. I think I can't remember if it was the Memphis game, but yeah, he had 10 assists. So that's super encouraging to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of touched on this before. I could have given this award to Norm or Pascal as well, and I'm just really happy about
Or
this.
Chris.
Or Chris. It's true.
Yeah.
I'm happy with these young guys. It's been fun to watch. Okay, court jester of the week. Who has been either funny, haha, or just the worst, and you wish that they were not on the court?
Sarah, do you want to go first?
No, I would like you to go first.
We may have unanimity here. I went with Aaron Baines. Oh God. And like I said, he's better than this. Against Brooklyn, 18 minutes, 9 points, 4 rebounds. Against Atlanta, 15 minutes, 2 points, 0 rebounds. You're the center. Memphis, 19 minutes, 7 points, 6 rebounds. But he was the only starter or player who played significant minutes who was a net minus. He was a -5. Basically, everybody else that played significant minutes, Stanley Johnson, Paul Watson aside, everybody was a plus except for Aaron Baines. So, Joker of the week.
You're making me feel so like I'm so happy because I feel less mean for like I don't know for the fifth week in a row giving it to Aaron Baines. Or like I don't know how many pods we've done this season, but I think 80% of the time I've given it to him, and I'm doing it again for exactly the reasons you said. Can this guy just you're the center. How are you being so badly out rebounded by the guards on your own team every game? So to me this is somebody not playing their role. And if it wasn't his role, maybe I wouldn't be so harsh, but it is. And everyone on your team is outplaying you. So and like oh my god, some of the misses, some of the open layups that he's missing, even the commentators for the other team, if you listen to their broadcast, they're like one of them said about a missed layoff off a pass from Kyle Lowry. He said he owes Lowry an apology.
Oh, yeah. When other teams' announcers are noticing it, yeah, it's definitely bad. And I thought Bismack Biyombo had bad hands. Oh Lord, Baines is, I swear, worse. But I feel kind of bad because I honestly, he's not this bad. But anyway.
Oh, okay, well, maybe talking to me is gonna just like color your view of him a little bit. But anyway, I would be okay if we just didn't play him, notwithstanding matchup problems that would be created. Okay, let's move into tea time. We're gonna spill some tea. I'm gonna start. G League. Raptors 905 was named the top G League franchise for 2019-20, which is actually 2 seasons ago. I don't know why this is such a delayed, announcement, but this is for on-court development, community involvement, and on-court success, business development, and community involvement. So congratulations to the Raptors 905. Very exciting.
Yeah, that was nice to see, and I can't help but think that not having easy access to the 905 is gonna hurt the development, because you think of all those games, where, Pascal and Chris Boucher, where, they played G League games in the daytime, and then they played with, the Raptors that night. I mean, those guys logged a lot of games, lots of reps, and, it's just the pandemic's unfortunate for a whole bunch of us for a whole bunch of reasons, but, I think this will hurt the development a little bit, but I mean, it's a pandemic.
Yeah. Okay. In other Raptors related news, Yuta Watanabe jersey sales are 50% of all the sales made on the Japanese NBA.com website.
That's awesome. I'm not surprised because there's a lot of Japanese fans who are suddenly Raptors fans. And I've discovered on Twitter that you can translate the tweets so you can actually read what the Japanese fans are saying. So it's been quite fun. And our Raptor Queens account has a few new fans from Japan. So welcome aboard.
That's awesome. We should just tweet more about Utah, then they'll follow us.
Yeah. Yes.
That's so great. Okay, what do you have for tea?
So I'm not sure if anyone else saw this. I guess these pictures probably made the rounds. Fred's partner posted some pictures in honor of their 11th anniversary. So Shantae Neal, that is Fred's partner's name. She posted a few pictures. One of them was at an oceanside patio, and Fred was wearing a nice crisp white polo and some ripped jeans, and the kids were in matching Burberry. So that was kind of cute. And then there was an indoor pic of them, and they both had shearling jackets on. And there was a backdrop of this beautifully detailed wood trim and molding that, oh, as a do-it-yourselfer, I was like almost crying. It was so beautiful. Um, then there was a really cute close-up of Fred getting a kiss on the cheek, and he had a really sly little smile. And then she posted a picture of them at a pool, and they looked like teenagers. Like it must have been when they first got together. So it was quite sweet.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah,
and he
that
didn't
was our
have a
feel
beard.
good story.
And Fred didn't have a beard in one of those photos, right? He just
Yeah, he was so
so young.
young. They look like like is he what, 26, I think? So that must have been when he was like 16?
I
Like
don't know.
regardless, they were quite young. So looking at the plans with the All-Star game, some of the players have been very vocal about criticizing the plan to go ahead. And Brad Beal and LeBron James are two of the most high-profile stars criticizing the plan. Brad Beal said, "quote No respect, don't no disrespect to the All-Star game, but there's a pandemic going on. All-Star weekend is about the fans, and that's not gonna be there, so I don't think it's worth the force." And LeBron's comment was, "I have 0" he was laid it all out there. "I have 0 energy and 0 excitement about an All-Star game this year. I don't even understand why we're having an All-Star game." And then Giannis also said, "I don't wanna do it. I want a break." So, yeah, they're, apparently not feeling it.
Yeah, and Fred VanVleet said, "I have no comment."
Yeah, um yes, Fred, discretion is the better part of valor. In the good news department, the shelves have been bare in the good news department, but with the pandemic and for the last year, but Karis LeVert has rejoined the Pacers um, at their practices. He's not doing anything on the court, but he's there with his team, and that's according to the athletic writer from Indiana, Scott Agnes. And
Yeah,
then sort of
a successful surgery to remove the growth, which I have to admit I saw that and I was actually surprised at how happy I was for him. I'm so happy that he's okay.
like, that trade could literally have saved his life. Like, it's really uncanny when you think about it. Like, I'm not a big believer in everything happens for a reason. I don't think it does at all, but this was, like, the best random thing that ever could have happened to him. And it kind of says something too about, technology now, because 30 years ago, people weren't getting whole body MRIs for a trade physical. So, it's kind of, the way it is now.
Yeah.
Another good news story, Karl Anthony Towns is now working out with the Timberwolves. I mean, this has just been a terrible year for him all the way around, so it'll be nice to see him come back. And then sort of in the macabre department, um, there's a online betting site, it's called Bet Online, and they've set, the betting odds on the, first coach who's likely to be fired in the NBA. So, in order, most likely to be fired is Ryan Saunders from the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then our dear friend Dwayne Casey from the Pistons, and Scott Brooks from Washington, and then Luke Walton from Sacramento. Now, I think Sacramento's been on a bit of a run, so maybe he's got a bit of a reprieve there.
Do you know where Steve Nash is on that list?
No, I did see some comments tonight, for our listeners before we started recording. We were talking about the Nets falling to the Pistons, and there was quite a funny comment on Twitter that a lot of people responded to, saying that, "Uh-oh, the knives are gonna be out for Steve Nash now." So, yeah, we'll have to see where those odds are in a couple of weeks. Um, Tim Reynolds, who writes for the NBA, he reported that Bill Russell is the latest NBA legend to get the COVID vaccine, and he had a really cute promotional comment. He said, "This is the one shot I won't block," and then he said, "No Celtics were harmed during my shot." And then, the award for self-deprecating humor has to go to Nikola Jokic. He, someone must have set him up for this, because he was asked the similarities between he and LeBron James, and he said, "The speed is there. We are the same athletically. I don't know, can he jump as high as me?" Which I don't know, I just thought it was quite funny. I mean, he kind of remade his body, but he's by no means, the most fleet of foot. Um, and then something I just saw tonight, the Dallas Mavericks have sort of quietly stopped playing the national anthem at their games. So staff at the facility kind of noticed, and there was no formal announcement. So it looks like they're moving away from that. So
That's
that's
interesting.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Mark Cuban's kind of always on the cutting edge of stuff. And I mean, I've heard this, idea posited before. Sure, play it for playoff games, but I mean, it probably ceases to have meaning for these guys when you have to hear it like every single day, right? So it makes you wonder if that's going to be a trend.
Hmm.
So that's pretty much all I have for tea time.
Okay. That is awesome. Great comment by Jokic. That's really funny. Okay, let's look then at our final segment before we move to our predictions for this week. Around the league, is Philadelphia for real?
Well, that's they've been through the process now, how many years and how many um first round high draft picks, lottery picks. And right now they're 17-7, they're sitting on top the Atlantic Conference. So, maybe to take a little bit of shine off of that, they did lose a game to Portland where Dame and CJ did not play. And then they also lost what was described by their coach as a very sloppy game to the Memphis Grizzlies. So, kind of on the upside, Tobias Harris is having a really good year. He's got the highest field goal percentage of his career. He's and shooting 44% from three, and he's up to 20 points a game. Embiid's playing really well. But according to Derek Bodner from The Atlantic, um, as of January 17th, Ben Simmons had attempted 6 shots outside of the paint in 30 minutes of play. So that's quite low. And he also said that Simmons' passivity was, quote, on full display after numerous drives into the paint with no attempt to score. So he broke it down a little bit more and he said, and this again, Derek Bodner from The Atlantic, he said during his rookie year, Simmons attempted 6.2 shots a game um, on drives. It's down to 3.7 now. So that's a drop of 40%. And interestingly, he turns the ball over on almost a quarter of his half court possessions. So 23% of his half court possessions are turnovers, which is just horrendous. And I'm sure you remember that game. Was it last year where I think, or maybe it was the championship year where I think we forced him into 9 turnovers. Yeah, it was the year Kawhi was there. Like he was just, he was bad. And there's a lot of complaining on Philadelphia 76ers Twitter about him. Like I think, that people are calling openly for a trade. So, I mean, we kind of roll our eyes at some of the Toronto fans and the behavior toward Pascal, but maybe every fan base has its a-holes. Um, like one bright spot for them is Shake Milton, and he's kind of stepped into the void. He's really playing well. I mean, I think Danny Green was a nice addition. And the whole thing about Dwight Howard, I was so surprised Dwight Howard left LA. It kind of makes me wonder. Um, and that Matisse Thybulle, like he just as a rookie, that kid just full of potential. Like, he was scary good as a rookie, and his numbers are down this year. Like he just has such potential, and he's really not taking the next step. And then sort of the other piece is coaching, and I think that Brett Brown, I know he like shepherded them through the process. I do think Doc Rivers is an upgrade, but I mean, to our question, is Philadelphia for real? No, I don't think so. I think that that's a flawed team. Um, I think they're going to come back down to earth. I don't see them as they're a good team. I kind of figured they'd finish behind Miami, Milwaukee, Boston. I don't think this is going to hold up.
Interesting. Okay, I have 3 points that I want to say about it. One is this is the first season where I feel like the flaw is not Joel Embiid. And I think something is different about his game. Maybe it's the conditioning that he's taking it seriously, so he came back after the offseason just like in better shape. But I also feel like there's and again, maybe this is just because I haven't seen any reporting about particularly stupid comments being made by him or just like the kind of thing that makes me note arrogance. I haven't really noted that about him this year. And so that is interesting to me. I think that there is like a general difference about Joel Embiid's game and that is real. Ben Simmons, I don't think has had that kind of, maturation yet. I do think he's still a bit of a problem. And, you highlighted some particular stats about his scoring and turnovers. I mean, to the extent that it matters, like they are still winning, notwithstanding that he's not taking as many shots and that he's being passive on offense. And maybe it's part of the Philadelphia game plan for him to. I don't know why you wouldn't want one of your one of your allegedly best offensive players to play more offense, but maybe there's a recognition from the coaching staff that like he just isn't that great offensively, and so they want to pull back. I don't know, or it could be his passivity, which I think is the more likely thing there, and so that's a flaw. And then the coaching is an interesting one. I don't know if I call it a flaw or if it's that I don't quite trust Doc Rivers yet. I agree he's an upgrade from Brett Brown. I still don't think he has particularly proven himself in the playoffs to be a coach that can take a team all the way. And I wouldn't say that that's like a forever thing about him. I think that Doc Rivers has it in him to do that, but he would have to grow beyond the coach he is right now. Is it going to happen with this iteration and this team? Maybe if you got rid of Ben Simmons. Maybe if there was like a trade that you could make to bring in like one more experienced veteran leader like Kyle Lowry. I think that they could do it. And I don't want to see Kyle Lowry leave the Raptors. And if he went to Philly and won a championship with them in his hometown, I would be so happy for him. So that is like maybe the way that Philly could be for real. And that's my thoughts.
That would be, again, I don't want to see Kyle go either, but that would be a nice legacy move. I mean, he has a home in Philly, and I mean, he would bring the grit um, that they very much need. I mean, maybe Embiid's kind of, to your point, had a change of heart, and he's, you can't, your charisma is not going to win you a championship. It's like hard work. So, and maybe Simmons and Embiid are like Kyle and DeMar, like, you have to pick one. I know I saw some comments on the Philadelphia discussion board about they were pissed that they didn't get Harden. Like they very much wanted Harden. He was going to be the answer to all their problems. And it kind of sounded like from what I was reading that there was, Ben Simmons might have been available. So maybe that's kind of contributed to, his lack of confidence here. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think they're for real.
Yeah, I think of them as being a couple really important pieces away, and in particular, like a veteran, experienced, mature piece away, and to get rid of Ben Simmons piece.
I did hear a rumor though that Miami wants Kyle, and I did see somebody did up Kyle in a Miami Vice jersey. So I that seems implausible. They have Dragic, they have a veteran guard. I don't know, but we'll take Precious Achua off their hands.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's move to the last little bit. We're going to do our predictions for this week. So we'll do the next 4 games because I'm not sure if we're going to be recording after 3 or after 4. We've got Washington coming up, Boston, Minnesota, and then the first game of a back-to-back against the Bucks. What do you predict, Allison?
Okay, hold on to your chair, Sarah. You're not going to believe this. So we're going to beat Washington. We're going to beat Boston. We're going to beat Minnesota, but we're going to lose the first game to Milwaukee. And we'll leave the suspense there. What do you think?
Oh my gosh, a 3-1 prediction for you. That's pretty exciting. Okay, I'm going to also go 3-1, but I still don't think we're going to beat Boston. I don't know. Boston has our number, has for a while now. So I'm going to go win against Washington, a loss against Boston, a win against Minnesota, and a win against the Bucks.
But okay, so when you look at historically when we've had a bad game against Boston, the next game we usually win. Remember the Christmas Day game last year and how bad they were, and they came back and won the next game, and we were kind of flat against them the last game we played. Yeah, I think that game is there. It's ripe for the taking.
That is so strangely optimistic for you. I really I just don't see it. I think Jason Tatum just outperforms Pascal Siakam over and over and over again in a way that just doesn't work for the Raptors. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens, and I hope I'm wrong.
This time I hope you're wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Let's find out if me and Allison are right or hopefully wrong or something. Tune in next week. In the meantime, stay Raptors fans.
We the North.